I just found out that Housecoin has been listed on Bitget for trading, and as I went over to the website, I thought this is a genius way to set up a business plan for creating your own meme coin. And I want to do a quick study on this project to see if I can pull out some details on how to create a business plan around a meme coin. You may know I've been doing a different series of videos this past while using artificial intelligence to do some really deep research into some different cryptocurrencies as they're being listed over on Bitget. I covered Milk Token, I covered Haydel, I covered Sign Token, Deep Token, Dolo, Hyper, INIT. Been covering loads of coins and learning a lot about them. When I see that this house token was listed and it's a meme, I'm not that interested in it really until I go over to the listing and I check it out, and I went to the website and wow, okay, now this is starting to change my ideas about what you can do with a meme coin. There's an investor pitch, there's a community hub, there's a video, I didn't check it out, but they've got their own Instagram, they've got their own TikTok, they've got their own products that you could order and pay in an SOL, which is great. And I think that House Token website shows that if you set up your meme coin properly, it can really change your life. And I did some research about this a little while ago, and I've entitled it, So You Want to Launch a Meme Coin? And I gathered all the information here that I collected up from some AI research I did about the step-by-step process of setting up your own meme coin, the pros and the cons and everything to do with it. So what I want to do now is create a new notebook LM where I'm going to gather all the information I can about Housecoin and setting up a meme coin, and then I'm going to ask it business-centric questions about how can I set up a meme coin this way? What are the steps that I should do to set up a meme coin that's going to turn into $1 million? And so I want to study other people who have already done this and turned themselves into a millionaire simply by setting up a meme coin properly. So let's see if the website will go into the data here. Very good. We can start to populate some information together. I'm going to take this entire article and put it in. So let's search for Housecoin crypto. I searched YouTube to see if there's any resources there, and there's only a couple. This is brand new news. So I want to review all these sources and see if I can come up with a business plan for creating your own meme coin. So now I'll save that to a note, and then I'm going to take that note and I'm going to convert it to a source. In the final step, I've asked Google Notebook LM to create a podcast that's going to answer the question for us and give us the explanation. Could a meme coin make us personally a millionaire? The podcast will explain the business plan that Housecoin is using in the ideation to come up with the ideas, to prepare to launch the coin, and the marketing they used in order to create this successful meme coin. I must say that I've pretty much ignored meme coins up until now, but I think that they are going to be a part of all businesses. And so I am starting to learn all I can about what it takes to create a meme coin. And now we've got that 14-minute podcast that's going to answer all those questions about how they created this business plan to create this successful meme coin, and could we do this ourselves on something as simple as this? The idea of creating your own meme coin and make $1 million and then be retired for the rest of your life is pretty attractive. I'd love to hear your comments down below. Have you been starting to do this yourself?
Welcome to the deep dive. You know, with all the energy in the crypto space lately, especially after things like the Token 2049 conference in Dubai, there's this big question floating around.
Yeah.
Could a meme coin actually make you a millionaire? We all hear the stories, right? These coins exploding out of nowhere. But what's really going on? Is there like a strategy behind madness?
That's exactly what we're going to unpack today. We've been digging into one specific meme coin, Housecoin, ticker is House.
House, okay.
And yeah, our mission is basically to figure out its business plan, if you can even call it that, from the concept, the setup, the launch, how they marketed it, just to see what made it tick, at least for a while.
Right. Because I bet you, listening right now, you're wondering the same thing we are. Could these things, these kind of funny digital coins, actually become like a standard business thing? Or even, personally, could one change your life?
Big question.
Definitely. So let's get into Housecoin. Oh, and before we really jump in, if you're thinking about getting into crypto trading yourself, our partners at Bitget have an offer. You can save 20% on trading fees.
Good deal.
Yeah, check the show notes for the details. It's a Bitget deal. Okay, so Housecoin. Where did the idea even come from?
Well, the core concept was honestly pretty clever in its simplicity. It tapped directly into this massive, very real frustration people have with housing prices just going through the roof.
Uh-huh, I feel that.
Right. And their angle was very tongue-in-cheek. They positioned house as this kind of joke hedge against the housing market.
A hedge. Okay.
Yeah, like the message was kind of, can't afford a house? Hey, maybe buy some Housecoin instead. And it was satirical, obviously.
And that's super relatable, isn't it? Especially for like Gen Z maybe, who look at the housing market and just think how that shared feeling, that kind of, ooh, seems like a powerful hook.
Exactly. That relatability was key. But it's really important to stress the satirical part. This wasn't pitched as, some serious financial product tied to actual property.
No link to bricks and mortar.
None at all. Purely theme-based. It was basically mocking the whole real estate investment game, just wrapped in a digital token.
Gotcha. And the marketing leaned into that hard, didn't it? I remember seeing their tagline.
Oh yeah, why buy a house when you can buy Housecoin? Stuff like that.
And some pretty wild social media posts, too. Wasn't there one about taking on the $350 industry with the power of retardation?
Uh-huh. That kind of really edgy, very online humor. It's definitely part of that whole memecoin vibe,
Totally. And didn't they even use a quote, supposedly from Michael Burry?
They did, on their website, yeah. Something like, the housing market will collapse, this coin is your hedge. Now, whether he actually said that about their coin is, well, let's just say it's highly debatable.
Right, but putting it there adds to the whole narrative, the satire.
Yeah.
Plays on those existing fears and memes.
Exactly. It builds the story.
Okay, so killer concept, taps into real frustration, got the edgy marketing down. How do they actually, make the coin? The technical side, the launch.
Right, the practical stuff. They decided to build it on Solana.
Solana. Makes sense.
Yeah, probably a strategic choice. Solana is known for being really fast, handling tons of transactions quickly, and crucially, the fees are super low.
Which is good for memes, right? Lots of small trades.
Precisely. If people are trading tiny amounts back and forth, you don't want fees eating everything up. So Solana works well for that kind of activity.
Okay, and the token itself. What was Housecoin, technically?
It was just a standard Solana SPL token, nothing too fancy there. They set a fixed total supply, 1 billion Housecoins. And importantly, they minted all of them right at the start, at launch.
All at once. Okay.
Yeah, and it looks like they went for what people call a fair launch or an initial liquidity event. Basically, they put almost the entire supply out there for the public to trade pretty quickly, looks like by late April 2025.
So no long lockup period for the creators or insiders holding back huge chunks.
Doesn't seem like it, no. The idea behind a fair launch is usually to get it into the hands of the community, encourage broad participation from day one.
Interesting. And where did they actually launch it? Was there a pre-sale?
No traditional pre-sale, apparently. They launched it on a platform called Pump.fun.
Pump.fun. Heard of that?
Yeah, it's become a really popular spot for launching meme coins, especially on Solana. Quick and easy way to get a token out there.
And once it was out, where could people actually trade it? Buy and sell?
Mostly on decentralized exchanges, DEXs. These let people trade directly with each other, no middleman, which offers more transparency.
Like Radium.
Exactly. Radium, Meteora, PumpSwap itself has some trading features, I think, and even some more established places like WEEX Exchange listed it.
Okay. And the team behind it all. Did we ever find out who they were?
Nope. Stayed anonymous, which is pretty common in the meme coin world, actually. Adds to the mystery, maybe. Or maybe just avoids accountability later.
Yeah, could be either. Okay, so relatable idea, check. Fast, cheap blockchain, check. Public launch on a popular platform, check.
Yep.
But how do they get people excited? How do they grow this thing? Let's talk marketing and growth.
Community. That was absolutely vital. They were super active on X, Twitter, and on Telegram.
Building the hype.
Totally. And that relatable narrative about housing costs, that really helped bring people together, gave them something to rally around. Plus, you got to remember, they likely benefited from just the general buzz around Solana meme coins at that time, too.
Right. A rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing.
Exactly. There was a lot of momentum.
But just chatting on Telegram isn't enough, right? Getting listed on the big exchanges, that must have been huge.
Oh, absolutely massive. Getting onto centralized exchanges, CEXs, think platforms like MEXC, HTX, Hotcoin Global, Gate.io, even Bitget's on-chain market that exposes the coin to way more people.
People who aren't necessarily deep into the DEX world yet.
Precisely. It makes it easier to buy, more visible. It's a crucial step for growth, for sure.
And the price itself was pretty low initially, wasn't it? Made it easy to jump in.
Yeah, around, what was it, 0.01, like less than 2 cents back in April 2025. So yeah, very accessible. You didn't need a ton of money to grab a bag of house.
Low barrier to entry.
Right. And there was decent trading volume too, which is important. At one point, it was reported around like $4.14 million traded in a day. That means there was liquidity people could actually buy and sell without massively swinging the price, at least initially.
Okay, so it sounds like it started with lots of everyday investors, the retail crowd.
Yeah, it seems the first big push, that initial rally, was really driven by those smaller retail investors catching on to the hype.
But then what usually happens?
Well, as it gets bigger, you often see the whales move in, the investors with deep pockets. They start accumulating larger shares.
Exactly, bigger positions.
Exactly. And reports suggested that by late April 2025, these whales held a pretty significant chunk of house, maybe around 62% of the total supply.
Wow, 62%. That's concentrated.
It is. And that kind of concentration can make the price much easier to, manipulate and much more volatile. Fewer people hold the keys, essentially.
And fundamentally, the value driving all this was just belief.
Yeah.
Hype.
Pretty much, yeah. Market sentiment, speculative demand. There wasn't any real utility tied to Housecoin, no practical use case. Its value is purely based on the story, the meme, and the hope that someone else would buy it from you for more later.
Pure speculation, basically.
At its core, yes.
Okay, so let's look at the results then. This strategy-relatable meme, Solana, fair launch, community hype, CEX listings. Did it work? What were the highs and lows for Housecoin?
Well, in the short term, it worked spectacularly well, actually. The growth was explosive. It surged over 800%, maybe more.
800%.
Yeah, and its market cap reportedly shot past $95 million by late April 2025. For a moment there, it really looked like it could be one of the big meme coin stories of that cycle. You definitely saw that FOMO, that fear of missing out, kicking in hard.
95 million market cap? That's serious buzz. But, that kind of vertical climb rarely lasts, right? Especially with no real there.
Nailed it. That huge run-up was followed by a pretty dramatic crash. By late April 2025, people were already describing it as being in limbo.
Limbo, so just drifting downwards.
Yeah, but it got worse. There were some really serious allegations floating around, talk of a $1.8 million rug pull.
A rug pull. Oh, boy.
Yeah, the accusation was that wallets, supposedly linked to insiders or the creators, suddenly dumped a massive amount of Housecoin onto the market.
Selling off their holdings.
Exactly. Which, if true, would drain the liquidity, the available money in the trading pool, and just cause the price to absolutely collapse. Which it reportedly did.
Ouch. That's the nightmare scenario for meme coin investors, isn't it?
It really is. And it just hammers home the point we were making earlier. Without any intrinsic value, without any real-world use, Housecoin was always fundamentally a super high-risk bet.
More like gambling than investing.
Arguably, yes. And that concentration of ownership we mentioned, that 62% held by whales, that makes it so much easier for something like a rug pull to happen. Fewer people need to coordinate to crash the market.
A harsh reminder of the risks. Now, it's interesting, Housecoin focused almost entirely on the meme and the hype. You mentioned utility earlier. Our sources touched on ways Solana tokens could have utility, even meme coins or loyalty tokens. Can you give us some examples, just hypothetically?
Sure. Yeah, while House seemed all about the narrative, the tech itself does allow for more. You could, for instance, have token-gated access. Meaning, like, you need to hold a certain amount of the token to get into an exclusive Discord channel or see special content.
Okay, so it unlocks something.
Right. Or maybe token holders get voting rights on community decisions. Say, an influencer launches a coin, maybe the holders get to vote on future content ideas.
Giving the community some power.
Exactly. Other ideas could be early access to merchandise drops, or maybe discounts on products if it's tied to a brand, or getting whitelisted for upcoming NFT mints from that same community.
So trying to build some actual value or benefit beyond just the price going up.
Precisely. Things like maybe using the token for kipping creators, micro rewards, tiered loyalty perks, hold more, get more benefits. These are all potential utilities you could build in.
But just to be clear, Housecoin didn't really go down that route.
Based on our analysis, no. Their strategy seemed overwhelmingly focused on capturing attention, building hype quickly, and riding that initial wave, rather than layering in these kinds of long-term utility features.
I got it. Okay, so let's bring it back to those big questions we started with. Based on this whole Housecoin saga, could a meme coin actually make you a millionaire?
Look, the Housecoin story shows that, yeah, technically it's possible to see absolutely massive gains incredibly quickly, that 800% surge. Someone who got in early and sold at the peak could have made a fortune. But the extreme volatility, the constant risk of scams like rug pulls, it makes relying on meme coins for wealth creation incredibly dangerous. It really is more like playing the lottery than investing. Those huge gains can disappear overnight, just like they reportedly did with Housecoin. So possible, yes. Probable or reliable, absolutely not.
Okay, and what about meme coins becoming like a standard part of business? Will every company have one soon?
Based on what we see with coins like Housecoin, which are so speculative and often lack real utility, it seems pretty unlikely they'll become a standard tool for, all businesses in their current form.
Too risky, too unstable.
Yeah, generally. However, the ideas behind them, the tech, the way they build communities online so fast, that stuff could definitely influence how businesses think about digital engagement, loyalty programs, maybe even new ways to handle value online. So the coins themselves, maybe not standard. The concepts, maybe influential.
Interesting distinction.
Yeah.
All right, last big question then. Could a meme coin genuinely change your life? For better or worse, I guess.
Well, again, theoretically, yes. A huge win could be life-changing financially. But the Housecoin example screams caution, right? The potential for massive losses is just as real, maybe even more so.
Life-changing in the wrong direction.
Exactly. So if you're thinking about diving in, you have to go in with eyes wide open. Understand it's pure speculation. Do as much research as you possibly can, which can be hard in this space, and never, ever invest money you can't afford to lose completely. The potential for gain is there, but the potential for losing everything is just as present.
Right. So wrapping up this deep dive on Housecoin, what are the key takeaways?
I think we saw the incredible power of a good story, a relatable narrative, and building a strong online community that can really fuel initial growth. We also saw how platforms like Solana make it technically pretty easy to launch these things and how crucial marketing and getting listed on exchanges are for visibility.
But then the flip side.
Yeah, the flip side is the extreme risk. The crazy volatility, the lack of underlying value usually, and the very real danger of scams and manipulation, like those rug pull allegations against Housecoin. It's a high-stakes environment.
Definitely. And hey, for anyone listening who's interested in navigating those crypto markets, maybe more cautiously, don't forget that Bitget offer, 20% off trading fees.
Check the show notes.
Yep, look for the Bitget deal in the show notes. Thinking about Housecoin's whole arc, it's wild. It's super fast rise and then apparent collapse. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
About what?
About what this all says about digital communities and how we decide what has value online now. Is the meme itself becoming some weird kind of utility in the digital age? Just the attention, the shared joke.
That's a fascinating thought. Is the narrative the product? Definitely something to chew on.
It is. And if you found this kind of exploration interesting, if you like digging into these crypto stories and what they mean,
then definitely subscribe to the deep dive. We'll be bringing you more explorations into crypto, finance, and all sorts of fascinating topics.
absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Catch you next time.